Now we're going to go a little more into using data. And as we were doing before with list tables and forms, there is a more advanced data handling you can do. One thing is when you want to extract data from the user interface. Let's say you create a project or a user and you need to have like the project ID or user ID and enter that into a search field. So what you want to do is you want to extract something from the user interface, save it in your test tool, and then input it. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to do this by using this, let's call it using data module. And then we'll create a test case called concat strings. And here, the concat strings is basically just using that URL concat strings. So we'll put it into there. The game is simple. We have to generate two strings and extract and enter them together, illustrating that we have to use, of course. So that's a success. But if I put Kawabanga instead, the test is going to fail. So what we were going to do with Busang is just, again, as usual, reload the test so it's at the beginning. And then we can make this window a little bigger. We'll hit the record button. We'll hit generate strings. We'll type the strings together just as you would. And we'll hit submit. And if we want, we can also create a validation on the success there, right? Showing that, okay, this is a success. Of course, this won't work. It will only work for the bird bear, right? So now if I hit play, now we get something else. We're putting in bird bear, and as we can see, it validates to fail, right? So that's not ideal. And of course, we can see in our report that we get an error here in the report, right? Well, now what we want to do is we want to try and extract this from the user interface. So what we're going to do is we're going to manually add the extract data action. So we're going to extract the elephant, and there you get some instructions saying it's in the test TMP value. Okay, let's do that, and then add another extraction for the other one. So that's great, except that if you look at the path here, it's looking for elephant and lion in the path. So basically, if we run this now, you can hit the little green button to run this, it's going to work fine. But if we have two other strings like bird, bird, and you hit here, you see it's not going to find it. You can see it doesn't highlight in the user interface, and you get a little red triangle there. So we're going to be a little bit smarter. So we are going to use the DOM selector again and select that element. But instead of looking at the contains elephant, we're going to look at the class. So as you can see here, now we're looking at string 1. And here, of course, we want to do something similar, but we don't want to look at that. So we'll do the same, edit. And now instead of looking at end contains, we look at string 2. Now we are discreetly looking at those strings. So now we can go in here and say test TMP value. And one thing you will have to remember is this will actually write test TMP value, is that here you will have to use the double curly brackets to make sure it's a variable. So let's try and run this and see what happens. Well, it did figure out that it's an elephant, but what didn't we do? Well, we assigned the TMP value to the element, and then we assigned it again, so we overrode the TMP value. And what we want to do is we want to concatenate them, right? So instead of doing equals here from programming, you do plus equals. That will add the two things together. So let's try it again. So now it should be able to extract the data and concatenate them. So you see it works for lion elephant, and it also works for lion tiger, right? So this way you can use extract data and the DOM picker to make sure that you can extract data from the user interface, and then you can use them, save them in a variable, and use them at a later time in a test, or create very, very good dynamic behaviors.